Hurricane Beryl devastation in Houston, Texas. Millions of people out of power. Good morning. Welcome to Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Budnam. I am thankful to all international news resources and my team. I am also thankful to all American, European, Canadian, Australian, Asian, African channels and AP, AFP and Reuters news agencies. Now watch the channels. Rather, headlines. Democrats' top brass is confused about Biden's future. NATO leaders in Washington, D.C. pondering the future of NATO and Ukraine. Israeli death strike in Gaza Khan Yunis killed more than 25 people. Cleanup in Ukraine after Russian attack yesterday. Russia issued arrest warrants for a dissident. Hunter Biden's new trial. Nikki Haley is backing Donald Trump. Central bank may cut interest rates. On Wall Street, Dow Jones Industrial down, Nasdaq and S&P 500 increase. Canada soccer team and Copa America. Hard to find summer job in Canada. Finding voice again by medical treatment. Now watch the channels.
Tonight, the political test for President Biden as he fights to put concerns about his campaign behind him. All eyes on the president as he welcomes world leaders for the NATO summit as a ninth House Democrat calls for him to step aside after his devastating debate. On Capitol Hill, Democrats meeting privately to discuss a path forward. And the unanswered questions, why did a Parkinson's expert visit the White House 8 times? Also tonight, the shooting near Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor's home, the attempted carjacking involving a U.S. Marshal. The remnants of Hurricane Beryl on the move, the U.S. death toll rising to 10. More than 2 million spent the day without power and dangerous heat coast to coast. Al Roker is tracking it. The Dartmouth student found dead in a river. Police investigating it. Is it linked to a fraternity event? The possible close call between 2 passenger jets, what the FAA says happened. Alec Baldwin in court as jury selection begins in the Rust shooting trial. NBC News investigates the Texas megachurch pastor resigning after he was accused of sexually abusing a 12-year-old girl decades ago. Our new reporting revealing his attorney tried to blame her for alleged abuse. Who else knew about it? And your first look at first giant pandas to enter the U.S. in 21 years.
This is NBC News.
On this Tuesday night, fever pitch. Canada's pivotal soccer match against the World Cup champions.
We can give ourselves a chance to compete to go to the final. That will be our
Mackenzie Gray is at the game in Jersey tonight. U.S. Democrats divided on Joe Biden's future.
Are you all on the same page?
No.
Is there a disagreement about Biden?
No, not really.
They're probably
I want to know this can be done.
the pioneering medical procedure that allowed this man to find his voice again.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Carolyn Jarvis.
What he aired. Also, the air scare in upstate New York, the close call to passenger planes, and the storms moving in the Midwest right into the Northeast, and the record heat. Ginger Z is here. First tonight, President Biden speaking to world leaders, the NATO summit in Washington, D.C. The president fully aware that world leaders and voters across this country are watching very closely. And the unexpected moment on that stage, you'll hear what the president said. The storms on the move tonight, heavy rain and wind sweeping across the Midwest into the Northeast. In of a tornado on the ground. Heat from Washington, D.C. to Philadelphia, New York City to Boston, as millions tonight in the South are without power after the hurricane amid life-threatening heat. Ginger with the latest forecast. That air scare, the very close call over the Syracuse airport, a Delta flight and an American Airlines regional flight. At one point, the pilots were so close, they could not see the other plane. Also news tonight, a suspect was shot during an attempted carjacking right near the home of Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. The college death under investigation tonight, the hazing investigation following the death of a missing student at Dartmouth. His body found in a river with underwater cameras just 65 feet from shore. The dramatic rescue of multiple boaters after crashing at high speed right into a bridge. And tonight, take a look. The newest residents of the San Diego Zoo, the giant pandas, have arrived.
So Tom's saying more Biden gap could be the nail in the coffin. Ha! Joke's on them. Joe's being cremated. A Parkinson's doctor said the specialist was scheduled for only one checkup, but Joe kept wanting more lollipops. According to Fox News Digital, during a meeting with his National Finance Committee, Biden told people to stop questioning him. And that was after someone asked, "Why are you pooping on the rug?" To save his re-election bid, President Biden has reportedly been working the phones. And by working the phones, they mean these. Whoopi Goldberg said she didn't care if Joe Biden pooped his pants, she'd still vote for him. Well, who knew that if you don't vote for me, he meant his underpants. Terrible. You like the poop jokes? Today, Congressional House Democrats held closed-door meetings focused on Biden's viability as a candidate. Joe wasn't there because he can't open doors. That was good. I'm glad you liked that. Reporter Jake Sherman says that one attendee said that the meeting felt like a funeral. True, people were crying, others were paying their last respects, and soon Hunter would be trying to bang the widow. Yeah, it on special reports. Jerry Nadler, who privately said he wanted Biden to withdraw, is now telling reporters that he supports Biden as the nominee. He's trying to have it both ways, like when he goes to the combination Taco Bell Pizza Hut. Missed that. On Monday, Late Show host Stephen Colbert suggested that it might be best for Biden to step down. Meanwhile, Johnny Carson said, "See you soon, Joe." Let's do the monologue. So with each passing day, it becomes clear that we're living in a country by a demented royal family. You got the Mad King, a senile dude who can barely hold on to the presidency, much less his own bowels. You got the evil queen, an ego-mad status seeker who demands to be called doctor, even though she's not. It's a doctorate in education. That's like demanding to be called a pilot because a flight attendant once pinned some wings on your shirt when you were 12. True, getting a doctorate in education is about as hard to acquire as a horse burger at my slaughterhouse. And of course, there's the entitled prince, a cut-rate Caligula, whose idea of a family outing is an orgy. Feels like they need their own theme song.
America's royal rabble, family full of fools, a twisted son, fake doctor, mama, daddy who rules. Who runs the country? Who's really on the throne? Could it be the evil queen who does it alone? His Majesty just mumbles and keeps freezing. His little prince lied about a gun. Courtesans were paid to shine his crown jewels. Sure must be fun. Who cleans up the messes when this king craps his pants? It must be the Duke of Dementia's sycophant.
Let's start.
OntarioRacing.ca.
Tonight, football fever, Canada's men face off in a historic match. The hype and the hopes.
It's surreal, to be honest with you.
As Canada defied the odds to take on soccer giant Argentina. Ticketmaster hacked, credit card number stolen, personal information at risk.
This is a massive hack. We're talking about over potentially 500 million people.
What you should do if you got one of those emails. Extreme heat on both coasts.
Drink lots of fluids and stay in the shade.
Climate change is supercharging heat waves, but by how much?
From CBC News, this is The National with Juanita Taylor.
Thank you for joining us. Adrian is away. Disappointment tonight for Canadian soccer fans.
Tonight, Democrats divided over President Biden's future.
Are you all on the same page?
No. What do you mean you're not on the same page? They're not even in the same book.
As the NATO summit with world leaders begins here in Washington.
Welcome to the 2024 NATO summit.
The critical week ahead for the president to calm concerns within his party.
Let's see the press conference. Let's see the campaign stops. Let's see all of this, because all of it is going to be necessary.
The CBS Evening News starts now. President Biden just spoke at the NATO summit here in Washington, D.C., a speech that has become as much about his fitness for office as it is about his foreign policy. Good evening. I'm Nora.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Bennett.
And I'm Amna Nawaz. On the NewsHour tonight, the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl. Millions of Texans are left without power amid dangerous scorching heat.
Joe Biden all the way.
He just has to step down.
Democratic lawmakers navigate the divisive party politics around President Biden's re-election bid as he tries to quell concerns about his age.
And NATO leaders gather in Washington, D.C. to try to safeguard the future of Ukraine and the alliance itself. Welcome to the NewsHour. We have two major stories tonight. One, a political hurricane of sorts as the partisan winds whip through Washington over Joe Biden's future at the top of the Democratic ticket. More on that in a moment.
First, the aftermath from what was Hurricane Beryl. It's now a smaller storm, but it has led to at least 7 deaths in the U.S.
More than 2 million customers remain without power during a stretch of extreme heat. That heat's also connected to at least 5 deaths in the West this week. Stephanie Tsai has our report. In the day's other headlines, Palestinian health officials say that an apparent Israeli airstrike on a school-turned-shelter in the southern Gaza city of Khan Yunis has killed at least 25 people. Dozens more were wounded and rushed to this local hospital. There was no immediate comment from Israel's military. The latest strike comes as U.S. officials say they will reinstall a pier along the Gaza coast for a few days before it's dismantled permanently. The pier was first used to deliver much-needed aid in May, but it's been plagued by bad weather and security concerns. Ukraine is mourning its dead from yesterday's Russian missile attacks across several cities and cleaning up the wreckage left behind. Flags in Kyiv flew at half-mast today for the 42 people killed and nearly 200 injured. The strike on a major children's hospital is an outrage. The Kremlin has denied responsibility, blaming Ukrainian missiles instead, but at the emergency meeting of the UN Security Council today, the U.S. ambassador pointed the finger squarely at Vladimir Putin.
Yesterday's attack makes abundantly clear Putin is not interested in peace. He's committed to wreaking death and destruction in pursuit of his war.
Meanwhile, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met with President Putin in Moscow today as the two countries seek closer ties, a relationship complicated by Russia's increasingly strong connection with China. Modi even alluded to yesterday's Russian attack in Ukraine, telling Putin, quote, "When we see innocent children dying, then the heart pains." Separately, a court in Moscow issued an arrest warrant today for the widow of Russia's late opposition leader Alexei Navalny. The court accused Yulia Navalny, who left Russia in 2021, of, quote, participating in an extremist community. She would face arrest if she ever returned. That comes 5 months after Navalny died while serving a sentence in an Arctic prison on charges that were widely seen as politically motivated. Navalnaya has publicly accused Vladimir Putin of murder and vowed to continue her late husband's work. Hunter Biden has withdrawn a motion seeking a new trial on federal gun charges. His lawyers requested a new trial last month, citing a technicality with an earlier appeal. Biden was convicted last month on all 3 felony counts related to his lying about drug use when he bought a handgun in 2018. He has denied wrongdoing. Nikki Haley is releasing the 97 delegates she won during this year's Republican primary season and urging them to back Donald Trump at next week's convention. In a statement, the former South Carolina governor said, quote, "The nominating convention is a time for Republican unity. Joe Biden is not competent to serve a second term, and Kamala Harris would be a disaster for America." Haley was a thorn in Trump's side throughout the primary and the last major rival to drop out of the race. A spokesperson says she won't attend next week's convention in Milwaukee. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell hinted today that the central bank is moving closer to cutting interest rates. Testimony before a Senate panel, Powell said that the Fed had made, quote, "considerable progress toward its goal of bringing inflation down from 4-decade highs." And he acknowledged that a cooling job market and persistently high prices mean the Fed is walking a thin line when it comes to getting rates.
If we loosen policy too little, we could hurt economic activity. If we loosen policy too much or too soon, then we could undermine the progress on inflation. So we're very much balancing those two risks, and that's really the essence of what we're thinking about these days.
In separate testimony before the House, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said she believes consumer prices continue to fall, blamed rent and housing costs for keeping inflation high. Now turn to inflation and on Wall Street today. Stocks ended mostly flat following those comments from Powell. The Dow Jones Industrial Average slipped about 50 points. The Nasdaq notched a new record, adding 25 points. The S&P 500 also ended at an all-time high. And a passing of note. Former Oklahoma Senator Jim Inhofe has died. His family said he suffered a stroke over the 4th of July holiday. Inhofe was a conservative fixture in the U.S. Senate for nearly 30 years. An Army veteran, military installations in his state, he was a strong advocate for defense spending. He was also a staunch denier of climate change.
I asked the chair, you know what this is? It's a snowball.
Known for his bullish personality, Inhofe famously went to the Senate floor in 2015 with a clump of snow as evidence to refute global warming. Flags will fly at half-staff in Oklahoma through tomorrow. Inhofe was 89 years old. To come on the news hour, a plan to overhaul the government and give Trump more control if he's elected. Skincare products see a boom in demand from tweens. And artists in San Jose use their creative talents to help the city reduce its carbon footprint.
This is the PBS NewsHour from WETA Studios in Washington and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.
Tonight in Washington, D.C., the 32 members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and allies from around the world are celebrating the alliance's 75th anniversary.
NATO was born in the same room where President Biden spoke this evening, calling it, quote, the single greatest defensive alliance in the history of the world. The focus of his remarks fell on the alliance's work to prop up a non-member, Ukraine, in its war to repel Russia.
We know Putin won't stop at Ukraine.
Media on France 24.
Sarah Morris, one of the 200 France 24 correspondents around the world.
Good morning, I'm Oliver Farr, and this is Daybreak, and these are this morning's headlines. Air defense is announced for Ukraine at NATO's 75th anniversary summit in Washington. President says the allies continue in Ukraine and that Kyiv can defeat Vladimir Putin, but Volodymyr Zelensky was the way to do more. Are reporting in Gaza, Israeli that was sheltering civilians. It is the second such strike in 2 days. Israel says the building is a legitimate target and was housing terrorists. The end of the road for France at Euro 2024 as Les Bleus lose 2 to Spain in the semi-final in Munich. France had familiar problems in front of goal and had no answer to an exciting Spanish side who scored a wonder goal by the 16-year-old media ball. The public broadcaster faces questions as to why it relegated coverage to France's parliamentarians. We'll be more about this soon.
Stream inches on ABC View.
Today, residents in Melbourne's west take shelter as a fire sparked by chemical engulfs a factory.
We estimate that we're going to hit a couple of days because of the fuel load in this factory.
Also ahead, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stresses the urgency of countering Russia's offensive at the NATO summit in Washington. 1 in 5 Australians admit to committing an act of sexual violence in an anonymous survey. And Australian workers were Hello and welcome to ABC. I'm Alicia Barry. Toxic smoke can be seen over Melbourne's west as firefighters work to contain a major fire that has broken out at a factory in Durham.
Minister Sudan, new seat of Sudan's government today for army ruler Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. Abiy's office said that it was part of the Ethiopian leaders' efforts to find a solution to the Sudan crisis. Rapid support for with order until the Sudanese, which is loyal to Burhan, had pulled most of the eastern and northern parts of the country to bring an conflict, now in its second year, failed, with each side accusing the other of being in the wrong. The war has driven nearly 10 million people out of their homes and created a humanitarian crisis, the UN says.
During a visit to Somaliland, Samuel Farah, Save the Children ambassador and four-time Olympic gold medalist, witnessed the severe impact of on malnutrition. In Gibili, he met mothers at a health center who shared how drought and floods have made feeding their families difficult. Age of 8. Farah also met mothers at a hospital who traveled long distances with malnourished children. He praised their strength, calling their choices impossible. So with million people and nearly 2 million children at risk of evacuation. Farah highlighted essential work to Save the Children, who has operated in Somalia for over 70 years, providing vital health, nutrition, and education support.
Humanitarian truce is in effect in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo, but the situation remains alarming given the most recent territorial gains. Updating the Security Council on her mandated activities, the head of the UN Stabilization Mission in the DRC, MONUSCO, expressed grave concern Monday.
The security situation in eastern DRC has continued to deteriorate, reaching alarming levels of violence and civilian displacement. I am extremely concerned about the rapid expansion of the movement du 23 Mars M23 in North Kivu and the spillover in South Kivu. Despite numerous operations conducted by the FRDC, regularly supported by MONUSCO and SAMI DRC.
Bintou Keita notably highlighted the humanitarian catastrophe.
The DRC today counts 7.3 million displaced people, including 6.9 million in the eastern
Update on the of the MONUSCO force, which is to enter its second phase.
It's not exactly where we want all of us the things to be, conform to the disengagement plan. So we will take time to consolidate what has been done in South Kivu, with the understanding that the government is going to continue to increase its capabilities, particularly the deployment of the security services.
A report by UN unveiled Monday concluded that Uganda provides support to M23 rebels who are allegedly backed by Rwanda.
Rarely do photos depict President Fiu so accurately, but this one picture taken nearly 17 years ago did. It is Lionel Messi then brought with Spanish wonder kid Lamine Yamal. The now iconic photo was taken by Joan Montfort, a colleague from sports mid, and he asked, "Is it yours?" And I told him it was mine. It was midnight and I was about to go to bed. I asked him who the baby is, and he says he's Lamine Yamal. I shuddered. What? And then the following day things took an unexpected turn. The long-forgotten photo from 2017 resurfaced after your mother posted it on Instagram last week with the caption, "The beginning of two legends." Montfort Messi looking upon meeting baby Yamal. It was difficult. Messi is a very introverted and shy guy. He was 18 or 20 years of age then. He enters the changing room to find plastic filled with water and a baby inside. It was complicated. At the beginning he didn't know baby. Despite his young age, Yamara's trains best players at the Euros. That the two would end up by chance in that photo in 2007 is something Montfort described as a coincidence. The stars align when Lamine meets Messi, but not with the younger Messi, but rather today's Messi, 17 years later, alongside the star player Yamal seems destined to be. So this is a trick of the stars in which coincidence and chance play a very important role, same way they do in the world of photography. The photos were taken during a charity drive as Barcelona players posed with children and their families.
The smell is really strong, so it will always affect our sleep really bad until I got migraine.
At home and abroad, that he can still lead amid doubts over his political survival. UN experts accuse Israel of a targeted starvation campaign, saying it's led to famine across Gaza. Fresh strikes on the enclave have also put ceasefire talks at risk. And China releases an environmental report on the Scarborough Shoal as tensions rise in the disputed South China Sea. Beijing and Manila have accused each other of causing damage in the waterway.
This is DW News, and these are our top stories. U.S. President Joe Biden delivered an address at the opening ceremonies of NATO's 75th anniversary summit in Washington. Alliance leaders will be seeking to shore up support for Ukraine against Russia's invasion. But all eyes are on Biden amid questions about his mental fitness for office as the U.S. presidential race heats up. The UN Security Council has held an emergency meeting in response to a missile strike on Ukraine's biggest children's hospital. Russian diplomats have denied responsibility for the blast in Kyiv. More than 40 people were killed in attacks across the country. Drone attacks in southwestern Russia were reported soon after, with online images showing Russian energy facilities in flames. The European Space Agency's Ariane 6 rocket has successfully blasted off on its maiden flight. Europe's newest rocket launched from the European spaceport in French Guiana for a nearly 3-hour journey. It comes 4 years later than initially planned. Companies from 13 different countries were involved in the rocket's construction and development. You're watching DW News from Berlin. There's more on our website at dw.com.
The news.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has slammed Russia's war in Ukraine.
Europe looks cautiously at Iran's supposedly reformist newly elected president.
Many of Ukraine's most talented young athletes have seen their dreams snatched away as the Russian invasion enters its third year.
Spain beat France 2-1 to reach the Euro 2024 final and aim for a record fourth title.
Thank you for watching and privilege of your time. This is Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Woodman. Have a good life.